Join me as historical chef David Shapiro discusses the importance of condiments in his cooking and his lifestyle. You have a very interesting relationship with condiments, don't you?
I'm a very big fan of condiments. I believe that not only are they important, but also they add a certain zest, if you'll pardon that term in this context, to food that can be somewhat ordinary.
Well, most food is ordinary. I mean, I like chicken, for example. If you really think of a chicken breast, it's almost tasteless.
Yes, so chicken breast is ordinary, and then a grilled cheese can be ordinary, but one of my favorite condiments is Marmite.
Marmite.
Yes, which is it's made in England, and it's in a spreadable form, and it sort of has the consistency of seedless jam, and it's a yeast-based product, and it is somewhat has a sort of a very deep kind of flavor, and it's great on bread products. And so I put it on grilled cheese sandwiches. And so what I'm saying is a condiment, and in this case, Marmite can make an ordinary meal, or in this case, an ordinary sandwich, extraordinary.
It's good to have those. I've never really heard of Marmite.
It's unusual in the United States, but if you go to London, it's everywhere. So it's somewhat actually very common in England, and it was first introduced in England in 1902 by a German chemist.
Is it a German condiment?
No, it's English.
It's English. So the Germans never got to have their own Marmite.
No, but they have, Mercedes-Benz and Porsches.
I thought the Porsches were Italian.
No, that's German, but the Italians have Ferrari and
Oh, okay.
Pasta.
You're very knowledgeable both on cars and condiments.
Well, that's our next show, Sam. Cars and condiments.
Well, yes. I mean, one would say that a car is a condiment of life as well. I mean, you can have a motorized vehicle that will get you somewhere, but if you want to have something stylish and comfortable like a Porsche, like I can drive a Chevrolet Impala and it'll get me where I'm going. But if I want to arrive in style, I should have a Porsche or a Mercedes Benz.
And faster.
And faster. Sometimes you don't want to be so fast. I mean, I'd like to, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like all my meals to slow down 10 times so you can enjoy it.
Well, unfortunately, in COVID New York, we don't have time for that because of the 25% indoor capacity of restaurants. We need to turn the tables as quickly as possible. Don't dawdle now, Sam.
Well, then we shouldn't be making our food so luxurious, and we should be using less condiments because we should be having a more Spartan lifestyle.
Well, not at home. At home, we have a lot more time than previously.
That's true. It's interesting how they now. Do you find yourself using more condiments these days than you used to?
I do, because I have more time to focus
Hmm.
and also plan. A lot of condiments I define as being available in one's pantry, although they can be refrigerated. So in stocking a pantry, it's important to figure out which condiments one would use more frequently than not, but also depending on the size of your pantry, you may will keep for even years, especially unopened.
Well, that's true. What are your 5 favorite condiments?
olive oil, which has to be extra virgin first cold pressed, which means when the olives are harvested, they do not use any heat in the pressing, and they don't press them more than once. And then there's pepper, which is essentially in civilized life is probably the world's first condiment. Salt came much later, and salt was very expensive, and that's where the terms worth your salt and
more wars were fought over salt than anything else in man's history, which we forget because now it's so plentiful.
Right. And so the salt was placed on a table in front of the most important person. So pepper is my second most important condiment, and black pepper is obviously very common all over the world. And I, of course, use a pepper grinder to grind and crack the pepper because then it's fresher and is more pungent. But that pepper is processed. I'm also a fan of something that is not seen or used very much at all in the United States, but is used a lot in France, which is white pepper. And white pepper is actually the seed of the pepper plant. Peppers are actually berries. And so that when the pepper is almost ripe, and then they process it and then it becomes black, but the seed of the berry is what becomes the white pepper. So white pepper is not quite as pungent as black pepper usually is. And also the color is, of course, much different. So pepper usually comes from India. Now it comes also from Vietnam. So that was pepper. And the third important condiment for me is vermouth.
Vermouth?
Vermouth, and primarily white vermouth. My favorite is Noilly Prat, which is French, but there are also some great Italian vermouths. And I use it in many different ways. The first way is when I open the bottle and drink some.
Well, I was going to taste your condiments.
And then I use it as a marinade for beef or fish. It's great.
Huh.
It's great in fish. But in fish, you can't, there's fish when you have ceviche. Ceviche is when you essentially cook fish with acid. So it's sort of raw fish, but it's somewhat cooked if you use acid, such as lemon juice to cook fish. So you can have some raw fish. Not all fish you can eat raw, but since everyone eats sushi now, there's of course, a lot of fish that you can eat raw. But ceviche will acid of lemon or lime or vermouth will somewhat cook the fish after 10 or even 15 minutes. So I use vermouth in that way, and also just to give it more flavor, even if I am actually cooking.
I have to say, when I first heard of ceviche, I couldn't believe it. I didn't believe it because I just thought, how could this cook? And it was with Sam Militello, and he says, you didn't use heat. You put it in lemon juice or some sort of vinegar. And so the next day I went to the fish department at the store near me, and I said, could I have one shrimp? And he said, just one shrimp? And I go, yes, just one shrimp. Because, well, I go, it's an experiment. So I took my one shrimp home. It cost about 45 cents.
I was going to ask you the price.
and I put it in a bowl, and I squeezed some lemon juice, and it cooked. It was an amazing revelation. And my head exploded. And that's what happens when I have a new condiment that I didn't know existed.